Hi guys, it's Ankita. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, hi, how are you? Thank you for clicking on this video. I mostly talk about classics, fantasy fiction, and sometimes middle grade books on my channel. Today, I'm going to talk about all the books that I'm planning to read this autumn or fall. So this is an autumnal TBR video. The first book that I want to talk about is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I just finished reading this book, so technically it's no longer on my TBR list. However, I did read it at the beginning of the fall, so I want to talk to you guys about it, and I feel this is a perfect autumnal read. It's a perfect October read for that matter. This book is about a boy named Nobody Owens, who is also called Bod. One night a man murders Bod's family, his mother, his father, and sibling. Bod at the time is a toddler. He manages to escape out of his crib and he crawls to a graveyard. There, Mr. and Mrs. Owens stumble upon this boy and they learn that the boy's life is in grave danger. So they decide to keep the child and to raise him in the graveyard. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Owens are long dead. They are ghosts. So essentially, Bod ends up being raised by ghosts in the graveyard. So we follow the story of Bod as he is growing up, right from when he's a toddler to this age of 18. And it's so fun and delightful to read this book. Even though the setting is kind of gothic, it still is a delightful read. I feel like this is one of those cozy October books that you can read without being spooked. And yeah, I really loved reading this. What I really liked about this is that even though Neil Gaiman's writing does not blow my mind, like I don't feel his writing is exceptional, but he definitely deserves credit for setting that gothic tone in his books, especially this one. It's really beautiful. Another thing that I do want to mention, because I absolutely love all the books that have won the Newbery Medal, and this is another one of those books that has won not only the Newbery Medal but also Carnegie Award. So if you are one of those who is interested in reading all those books like I am, this one could be your next autumnal read. The next book on my list is Walden by Henry David Thoreau. This is the book that I picked up on one of my recent trips, and my am I loving this book. Just to give you a gist of what this book is about, it's all about a man's love for nature, his deliberate escapism to nature, and his account of how he lived there. So what Thoreau did in the spring of 1845 is that he went into the woods. He went into the woods and he built a cabin for himself there. Actually, he built a cabin on the land that was owned by Ralph Waldo Emerson. So if you're an Emerson fan, just, maybe that will kind of pull you towards reading Thoreau. But he built a cabin over there and he lived there. So while he was living there, he made a lot of observation. He observed not only nature but also human nature, and he wrote everything in his journal. And this book basically is an account of his time living at Walden, and it's so beautiful. It is definitely philosophical. So far I have not read a lot of it, but it's taking me a lot of time to read this. It's not one of those books that you can finish in a day or two. It's definitely a book that you have to savor, because there are so many things that he talks about. So far he has talked about clothing and just like the bare essential things that a human needs to survive. He has also commented about fashion, about the magnetism of luxury, and if we truly need all the things that we think we need. It's a very beautiful book about a man's observation of nature, and because it's about nature and it's so philosophical, I feel it makes a perfect autumn read. A few months ago when I was reading the All Souls trilogy, I think, and then also Matt Haig's The Midnight Library, then I also came across one of Mary Oliver's poems in which she talks about Walden. And that's when I read Mary Oliver's poem. I'll link to her poem if I can find it online. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that I came across Walden in one of her poems, and that's what made me pick up this book. And I absolutely love Mary Oliver. Like, her poems are so inspiring, and they make me appreciate the present and small things and people who are at the moment present in my life. So it's really beautiful poet. The next book on my TBR is J.R.R. Tolkien's The Two Towers, which is the second book in the Lord of the Rings series. I'm actually reading this book with my friend, and I am really enjoying reading this. The joy of reading something and then being able to talk about it with someone who enjoys this just as much as you do is phenomenal. It totally alleviates that experience of reading a book, and in this case we are planning to read the series, so it's gonna be fun. If you have not read The Lord of the Rings, I highly recommend it, because really no epic fantasy compares to Lord of the Rings, because it's an epic of its own. It's just like there's no comparison. You cannot compare anything to Lord of the Rings. It's that good. Everything's good. The language is so fun. The relationships in this book are amazing. There are so many things you can learn as well. The next book on my list is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. I have the complete Sherlock Holmes, and I already read 2 books earlier this year. First one is A Study in Scarlet, and the second is The Sign of Four. I really enjoyed reading them. I especially loved A Study in Scarlet because that's the book in which Watson meets Sherlock Holmes for the very first time. And I absolutely love that meeting. I especially love the first half of the book. Well, if you have not read Sherlock Holmes, I really highly recommend that you read it. It is thrilling. It is, again, it's one of those classics that you must read. I'm sorry, I'm one of those who makes people read books that I love, and therefore I'm saying must. It is thrilling, it is fast-paced. Honestly, his books are always so interesting. I wanted to read the entire Sherlock Holmes series this year, but well, that didn't happen. That does not mean I'm gonna give up. So I'm gonna continue reading it. So The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes it is. I actually am not fond of this copy. I really don't like this dust jacket that much. This color is really off-putting for me. It does no justice to what's actually in the book. However, I do like the back. Look at this. It's a glimpse into Holmes' flat at 221B Baker Street. This replica shows the room as it might have looked if the famous detective had just left hurriedly in hot pursuit of a new villain. See, that's the only thing common between Sherlock Holmes and me, a messy room. The next book on my list is We Have Always Lived in a Castle by Shirley Jackson. I'm already 10 pages into this book, and I think it is the most funny book that I've ever read. It is dark, but it is funny. It's supposed to be horror, but so far I have found nothing that's kind of spooky or will keep me up at night horror, at least not until now. I'm only 10 pages. It's about a girl named Mary Blackwood and her sister and her uncle. They live in this house, which is one of the oldest houses in the town in the village that she lives in. And so from what I've read so far, nobody in the village really is fond of her or her family, and she just goes around wishing all of them were dead. The way it's narrated is really funny and dark, and I really don't know how to categorize this book, but it's just a fun October read. It could be another one of those nice Halloween read without you being spooked too much. The next book on my list is The Book of Images by Rainer Maria Rilke. This is my second book by Rilke, the first being Letters to a Young Poet. And if you have not watched the video, go ahead and watch it. I absolutely loved his letters. I am now jumping into his poetry, and so far I have read a few of them. And I do need to read all of his poems to really let you know what his poetry feels like, but so far there's this underlying darkness in all of his poems, and there's no other way that I can explain it to you. One of the poems that I really liked is Entrance. I will try to add a link to his poem if it's online. The last book on my list is How to Be Brave by Daisy Mae Johnson. Okay, I wasn't planning to read this book in the fall. However, I do love the cover. Look at the cover. There are quite a few fall colors in there. Blue skies, there's red and orange. I love the cover. It does justice to what's in the story, even though I have not read it, but the synopsis is that it's about a girl named Carla, and her mother, Elizabeth, is a duck expert. She's expert on ducks. So Elizabeth, her mother leaves for a research trip to Amazon. Meanwhile, Carla moves into a new boarding school. A couple of days later, Kala learns that her mother has gone missing. So it's a story about Kala and her friends trying to look for her mother. At the same time, they are also dealing with an evil headmistress. So it's a perfect story. It's a perfect book for someone who loves boarding school stories. I absolutely love them. This one is a contemporary middle grade adventurous story. I wasn't planning to read this book in October or November, anytime around, but I did want to read it in summer. My library didn't have it at that time. I recommended it to them though, and they have it now, so I borrowed it, and that's how it has ended up on my autumnal pile. So those are all the books that I'm planning to read this autumn. I do realize it's a very modest TBR because fall is a very busy time of the year. Too many things to do, right? Anyway, do let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning to read these books. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button down below. And don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and family. And I'll see you next time. Until then, bye.